welcome to my channel, Bow and Arrow Tarot. Today we're going to get right into the weekly reading for the sign of Scorpio. This is for February 8th to the 14th. And before we do that, let me just remind you all that I'm giving away the Love Oracle card deck from the Island Time Wellness Company off of Etsy. It's just a one-woman company proprietor. She's made these cards up. They're quite nice. And so I've just decided to give away a deck. Now, in order to be in the running for that, you have to leave me a comment letting me know you're interested, and you have to be a subscriber. All right? A lot of comments I've checked from people, and they're not actually subscribed to my channel. So that's, you can't win this drawing unless you're subscribed and you leave me a comment. Then you are in the running. All right, guys? So let's get right into it. Scorpio, your weekly, February 8th to the 14th. You're going to pull out your 3 oracle cards and your 3 animal spirits, and then we're going to get right into your spread. All right, Scorpio? All right. Let's see. What's going on for my lovely water sign, Scorpio? February 8th to the 14th. Show me. All right, Scorpio, straight out, you have, first one is a mask, right? Not showing who you really are. Somebody's not showing their true feelings. They're hiding their feelings, pretending. Date night for some of you this week coming up. And then we have the Grim Reaper. Now, this showed up for you before, actually, Scorpio. I think it showed up for one of the daily reading for you. For tomorrow, actually. The dailies are already up. By the way, the daily readings, I premiere those every morning at 9 o'clock. The date is on the video, but somebody from Europe was asking me to release them earlier because it was already halfway through the day. I released them the day before. So this morning's video that I released, on the video it says 2/5, February 5th. So it's actually for tomorrow. So everyone, including people in Australia, should have plenty of time to see their daily outlook for that day. All right, guys? So just pay attention to the titles, and the dates on the titles of the videos. It's amazing sometimes the comments that I get. It's like, it's just, I'm not going to say that it's obvious, but it's like, I try to give as much information as I can. All of the information is in the description as well. Sometimes I get questions that would easily be answered if all you did is just looked at the description of the video. So I'm just putting that out there, guys. Not necessarily that a Scorpio would act that way. You Scorpios are just altogether too clever for all of that. But nevertheless, camel energy, fire energy. Beautiful. One of my favorites. The Phoenix, associated with the very first chakra at the root of the spine, or the base of the spine. And we have the Earthworm, earth energy. All right, let's get right into it. These are 3 pretty interesting cards for you, Scorpios. The camel, fire energy. The camel is one of the highest spirit animals for resourcefulness and independence. The spirit of the camel is around us when we are being sort of, self-sufficient, right? The camel doesn't need anyone to get through anything, really. The camel is able to go through long periods, right, of dryness and heat. If you think about a camel in the wild, in the desert, go for very long stretches without any, without anything actually around. And when they need sustenance, they only need to go within and tap the water that they're carrying around with them in their humps. And so the spirit of the camel is very symbolic when we are having to sort of be a survivor, depend on ourselves to get through something, right? Now the camel also, spirit of the camel is there when you need to remain calm in the face of a lot of anger or frustration. And so certainly when you are dealing with someone who's very angry or upset or irritated, the spirit of the camel is one that will remain calm, right? That will remain sort of even keel, and won't, sort of react per se. Very, very strong, strong animal spirit. Now, the phoenix is associated with the first chakra, the root chakra. And of course, what do we know about the phoenix? Well, the phoenix is, rises from the ashes. It's that mythical beast that rises from the ashes, sort of brand new, right? The phoenix always rises. And when it dies, a new phoenix rises, right? And so here we're talking about really letting go of the past, letting go of the things that are old and no longer suit us or serve us. We're really talking about sort of, not even so much forgetting difficulties of the past or sort of burning bridges, really accepting them, really just accepting that it's in the past, it's no longer part of our current life, and so, integrating that experience, not trying to ignore it, not trying to sort of demonize it, but simply integrating it, accepting it for what it is, and that it is now over. And that now you have all of the potential in the world to start on any sort of level that you want to start, right? Phoenix can also talk about burning off karma of the past, right? The end of sort of, I'm going to say karmic sort of relationships, in a sense that it's the end of those type of relationships that keep sort of building angst and building negativity and building more negative karma. That's very karmic. That's what we talk about when we talk about a karmic relationship. One where each person, each of the two people in that relationship are constantly sort of triggering the other person to sort of act in a way that will build more negative karma in a lot of ways. So it's the release of all of that, right? It's letting go of all of that. The Phoenix also talks about really having had enough suffering as well. And this is interesting for you, Scorpio, because Scorpio, you're one of these signs that will just, the spirit or the energy of Scorpio will hold on to things. You will hold on to sort of slights or animosity even, or, hurt. You can hold on to hurt, because you are a very sensitive sign, right? So you don't forgive and forget easily, or if at all. Well, Phoenix really talks about letting go of these things because you really just have had enough of being angry, or you've had enough of suffering. You know what I mean? You've just simply had enough of whatever it is you're holding on to impacting you negatively or impacting you at all. And so it's one of these types of letting goes as well. Letting go for your own good. Now, the earthworm, spirit of the earthworm, it is an earthy creature, clearly. Alchemical symbol for earth at the top of the card. But the earthworm really is a feeling of trepidation, fear, a little bit of fear, anxiety. It's that feeling of being a novice, whenever you're a novice, whenever you're new, you're the new guy on the team, or you're the new woman in the office, or you're new at something. Even if it's something creative, you may have learned or realized you have a certain creative talent that you're pursuing now, but you're new at it, you're a novice. And so it's this feeling of not being able to, come out, right? Come out of the earth and show yourself, right? Or just being afraid. It's just general fear of the new. Fear of, being the new one, or dealing with something very, very new that you personally are not necessarily an expert at, right? Now, the earthworm is interesting because the spirit of the earthworm comes into all of our lives at some point, because we're all novices or students at something. Whatever it is, at some point in our lives, we're learning something new. And we all feel a little bit, meek, or, have self-esteem issues, or, just not confident that we can, sort of be good at it, right? Or be the expert at it like everyone else around us is. The one thing with the earthworm, though, is that it is a temporary energy. And it invariably and inevitably goes away, because at some point after a period of time, you are never, nobody's ever a novice forever, and after a period of time, you start to gain some experience. And with that experience comes confidence, and, this feeling of being, inadequate, or this feeling of just not being enough will go away. All right, guys. So, Scorpio, let's pull out your spreads for the week, February 8th, 14th. Show me what's going on with my lovely Scorpios this coming week. And just as the dailies are put out the day before, the weeklies are put out the week before. So this weekly that you're watching now is for next week, right? So February 8th to the 14th. All right, Scorpio, 8 of Swords, 7 of Wands, Queen of Swords. All right, let me move this up just a tad. All right, guys. So 8 of Swords energy. Some of you are coming into the week with this energy. Interesting. Feels very much like, for some of you, you feel like a decision has been taken out of your hands. You know, 8 of Swords is this real feeling of being a victim to a certain degree, not being able to make the moves or the decisions that you'd like to make, and really feeling like it's everybody else's fault, right? Or it's not your fault per se, you know? You can see that the character is bound and blindfolded, but a lot of times this inability to move or to take action, or this feeling of alienation, it really comes because this person is surrounded by their own very restrictive ideas. This is someone who generally has a certain outlook on life that is very restricted, very sort of, maybe even, I mean, I would say sometimes you would classify maybe as old-fashioned, but not even necessarily old-fashioned, because some very old ideas are very expansive. It's just that you have a certain outlook. And that outlook on life is what's really alienating you. It's that outlook on life that's making you feel like you don't have options, or you don't have all of the options you'd like to have. Sometimes this energy, 8 of Swords, I often say this is a very toxic energy when it is in its extreme, right? So when you're dealing with somebody who's coming in towards you like this, it can be very toxic. This is usually somebody who's a gaslighter. And like I said, this can oftentimes be someone who not only feels like a victim, but plays the victim a lot. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, Scorpio, but I do say that you're coming into the week with a little bit of this feeling. There's some situation that you feel as though there's nothing you can do, and there's a real frustration there, which you know, and I guess the thing is, part of what you need to realize in this particular scenario is that, you know, your options are your own. You make your own opportunities, right? And you're always able to make a decision and move forward, right, on your own steam. You know, it's not like, you know, the thing that's stopping you is your outlook. You know, your belief that things need to be a certain way, or your belief that you need to behave a certain way to get what you want. It's that outlook that's really sort of limiting you, and not anybody else, right, Scorpio? So you're coming into this week with this feeling, really battling, I think, with an issue. 7 of Wands, it could be a relationship, I say, right? It could be some sort of dynamic that you have that you're kind of battling with your role in it. I think right now you're still kind of feeling like none of it is your fault. So you're met with a 7 of Wands energy, and this is quite interesting, because I feel like the 7 of Wands is somebody that you're coming across this week. And while you're feeling a little bit sort of like the victim right now, or perhaps like things have been unfairly stacked against you, you're coming into this week and an energy from someone. There's someone in your life, maybe new, or maybe someone you already know, that you're going to be seeing this week in your day-to-day, you know, activities or whatever. And this person is very sort of the opposite, right? So they're very, very sort of courageous in a lot of ways. They're very sort of even over the top, kind of like, you know, I can do anything attitude. And they are also dealing with their demons, right? It feels to me like this person is also someone who's feeling very much like, you know, it's them against the rest of the world. You're feeling a little bit like this too, Scorpio. If you're resonating with this reading, you're having that same feeling. But the difference here is that this individual that you're dealing with this week, their energy is more like, okay, it's me against the rest of the world, and I'm going to figure it out. You know, nobody's going to stop me. I'm going to find a solution to this. Whereas you're still kind of in that space where you're like, you know, I want to find a solution. I want to get out of this. I really just don't know how. I don't think it's me. I think it's them. And I think there's a real learning process that happens here with this meeting this week for you, Scorpio, because you round the week off with a Queen of Swords. And the Queen of Swords talks about really sort of going through the, you know, the trials and tribulations and difficulty involved with self-reflection. Right? Reflecting on yourself. Now we get into sort of the mask energy from the Oracle card, because the Queen of Swords is all about cutting away masks. You know, she's worked very hard to cut away any masks that she may have worn. She works very hard to sort of like get out of any roles that she may have been put in or that she may have felt like she needed to play to keep other people happy. Even her own limitations that she's put on herself, she's worked really, really hard to cut all that away. And so the Queen of Swords is very much about honesty with regard to who you are. Right? Honesty with regard to who you are and what your true feelings are, and being in line with that, being open with that, being one with that, and being extremely honest about that, right? And I think that this is a real learning curve for you this week, especially with the Seven of Wands coming in, this feeling of, you know what, I need perhaps some shadow work, like I said, or some deep self-reflection to realize that at the end of the day, you know, this Eight of Swords energy that you're feeling is part of a role maybe that you've put yourself into, or it could be part of a mask that you're wearing. You really have to face up to your own sort of mental blockages, or I want to say mental ideas, right, about who you are and about the way life is, in order for you to be able to break out of this kind of self-imposed prison, I want to say, this self-imposed straitjacket almost, this feeling of you not being able to do the things you want to do, or, manifest the things you want to do. Certainly realizing that, the answer is absolutely within you, but you have to let go of some of these sort of ideas you have, just as the Queen of Swords has. Ten of Wands, more release, death. Oh, wow. Seven of Swords. Damn. Scorpio, some of you are coming into this week, and it's a breakthrough. It's Phoenix energy. It's a laying down of burden, responsibility, baggage, everything that you've been carrying around with you for quite some time. Now you're ready to lay it down. You're done suffering, just as the Phoenix says. And Ten of Wands is completion, of course, right? It's coming to a stage in your life where you no longer have to carry this baggage you've been carrying. A lot of this baggage is ways of behaving, ideas, like I said with the last spread, ideas you have about yourself and the world and how you fit into the world. Some of those ideas you have been carrying around with you they may have served as a crutch previously, years past or what have you, but now they've kind of turned into an impediment. They've kind of turned into something that's stopping you, right, from growth. And so you realize that, and this is a time where you're laying that down, right? These wands, this baggage, all of this that you've been carrying. And you're having a real breakthrough, very much Phoenix energy, a desire that you just don't want to suffer anymore carrying this weight. Coming to this week, there's a big change that comes. Transformation is coming everywhere. Some of you may be changing jobs. You may be changing living conditions. As a result of laying down these Ten of Wands, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are actually physically moving. You may be moving where you live, or just changing something about your social life, your physical environment, right? All of that as a knock-on effect from this change that you're going through, right? This completion and ultimate change. Nevertheless, you round the week off with a Seven of Swords, and there is a feeling of futility in some of the things that you're trying to do. And the Seven of Swords is a card for futility. It's also a card for treachery. It feels like there's someone there who sees you going through this change, this resonating up. Really, it's a positive change. It's growth. Death always brings growth, right? With the tarot. Always brings growth. And yet, Seven of Swords is there. Something's not working out quite right. And I think you're going to find out later on, perhaps in the following weeks, that somebody very close to you is just not good for you. They don't have your best intentions. And they don't really, they may on the surface be your buddy or your friend, but behind the scenes, they're really very much like a thief in the night. They're very much sort of like, disrupting what you're doing or throwing monkey wrenches into your plans. Just being very sort of diabolical, very treacherous and underhanded. It's interesting because it feels very much like somebody who's jealous of the fact that you're getting your life together. Five of Pentacles, High Priestess, and Eight of Cups. This is your last spread, Scorpio. Five of Pentacles talks about a split that costs you financially. Five is the number for power dynamic, or power struggle, rather. And so with Five of Pentacles, we talk about a power struggle, whether it's with friends or a lover or family, whatever the power struggle is, or whatever the conditions under which you've gone through it. It resulted in a divide or a split. It resulted in a separation in that union, and ultimately you're the one who's kind of having to rebuild yourself. You're the one who's kind of having to maybe even start from scratch again, you know. Nevertheless, I always say this in my readings, the Five of Pentacles is very much an energy that needed to happen. Oftentimes it is a very sort of, in a short term, it feels horrible to have to go through it. But the dynamic that you were in before the split happened was the type of dynamic that you were never going to grow in anyway. You were always only going to stay limited, and it was inevitable that this union or this partnership, what have you, and it was inevitable that it was going to split, right? And so better sooner than later, because there really was no room for growth in this dynamic, you know. And so the longer you waited to get to this point, the longer this point would have taken to come. Regardless, you would have still had to go through this, which is the restart, the reboot, you know, the rebuild. So you're going through that this week, this feeling of sort of starting all over again, certainly financially, certainly trying to rebuild your stability. And you're met with a High Priestess, and I'm going to say for some of you it's interesting because this week the High Priestess is it's not a card that comes up a lot in my readings, right? Lately she has not been coming up a lot in my readings, and she really is the card for sort of self-confidence and a high level of intuitive ability and understanding. There is a feeling of realization with the High Priestess that comes in as a result of just living life, right? Living life and having life prove that you were right, right? Sometimes when you have a constant dialogue with yourself, you know, an understanding with yourself, you listen to that inner voice, sometimes you don't necessarily listen to the inner voice, right? But it's there. When life begins to happen in such a way that it kind of proves to you that you were right about something, or things happen in such a way that really open your eyes to a particular understanding that you may have already had before, right? Your intuitive confidence increases, right? Because it's like you have reaffirmation that you were right about something, but that takes life. You know, that takes experience, and that takes sort of time and you living your life for that to happen, you know, because things don't, reaffirmations or the proof of what you believed was going to occur doesn't always come in the next morning at 8 o'clock. Sometimes, sometimes the proof or the confirmation or reaffirmation doesn't come in for months or years, you know, so it is going through life that is the answer with the key, with the High Priestess. And so this week, it's interesting that you have a lot of experiences that kind of really hone in on who you are and in your internal voice. It's like your life is very much mirroring, you know, what the running dialogue you're having in your head. And part of that dialogue, I think, is telling you to move away from certain relationships that no longer suit you. 8 of Cups is that energy. By the end of the week, I think you realize that this 5 of Pentacles, this power dynamic, this split, can occur in other areas in your life. I think you very much realize there's a kind of a big understanding that comes in that it's down to you to choose the type of relationships you want to have, and certainly to choose relationships that resonate on a higher level, where you have a deeper level of engagement than the one that you were in here that ultimately fell apart. This is a real lesson this week, and it almost feels like, as bad as this was when it first happened, it's a blessing in disguise because it has taught you something about yourself, you know, and it's giving you a certain amount of self-confidence to take the steps you needed to take over here to move away from an environment or to move away from people that will only continue to cause these type of power breakdowns. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. February 8th to the 14th for Scorpio. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave me a comment if you want to be in the running for the Love Oracle card deck. The winner will only be picked from my subscribers and from those who've left a comment saying that they're interested, because I don't want to give it to someone who's not interested. And that's it. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. If you want to get a private reading, follow the link at the top of your screen. But for right now, Scorpio, have a wonderful, wonderful week, February 8th to the 14th, and I'll see you the following week for your weekly. Bye-bye now.